Holy cow, do people love hating on Samurai. Shinkaiger was better.
Listen, guys.
Sentai and Power Rangers are two different shows. I know they use the same footage in a lot of things, but they're just not the same show. If you want Power Rangers to be Sentai, go watch Sentai. It's not aimed at the same demographic. But the truth is that Power Rangers was going to be over. RPM was supposed to be the end of Power Rangers, but then something happened that no one expected. Saban bought Power Rangers back.
This changes everything.
Apparently the guy just called up Disney and said, you guys don't know what to do with this brand, I'll buy it back from you, and they did it. This caused Power Rangers to return back to its lighthearted roots like in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, a huge contrast from the seasons before like RPM, one of the darkest seasons of Power Rangers, Jungle Fury, which is a phenomenal season, especially when you start looking at the actors who are on that show. I actually have a breakdown on that video too, so if you're loving breakdown videos about Power Rangers seasons, then check that out later. A lot of critics jump on this season saying that the acting was terrible.
With an answer like that, you have to be the Red Ranger.
Yes, I am the Red Ranger.
But I'd like to challenge you to take some of those lines that they were given, like that one in particular, and you try to record Jayden saying, yes, I am the Red Ranger. If you can do that convincingly, then put it on TikTok, tag my channel in it, and put the Power Rangers Samurai Acting Challenge. But besides returning to the lighthearted roots, it goes back to the mantra of the 90s, which is, who's really gonna notice? And their editing was just as bad as the 90s, and they really let the story be controlled by the actual footage from Sentai instead of trying to write the show and use the footage when needed.
Be nice.
Few examples of this would just be Master Xandrid not understanding that he was defeated. That's kind of a weird thing. The Samurai Rangers training separately when they're all supposed to be a team whenever the Nylok reappear. Don't really understand that. But those might just be personal opinions. The one that really gets me is that in the third episode, the team unites. Mike has a whole issue with being a little bit of a hotshot and trying to do everything himself. Eventually, he learns that he needs to have his friends with him, and then he starts to let them help him. They defeat the Nylok, and then it grows, and he decides that he's going to take on this monster with his Zord all by himself. I thought we just learned that that was a bad idea, Mike. Why are you doing that? A few minutes into the battle, the rest of the Rangers say, let's help him. And then Mike's all happy. Hey guys, thanks for coming and helping me. It doesn't make any sense. We just learned that you weren't supposed to do that, Mike. What are you doing? They didn't go in and re-edit that footage. They just kind of let the footage lie and change the words around until it just fit whatever they were trying to say. And then there's also moments that are just odd that don't really make a lot of sense. Or like when Kevin's trying to get the swordfish sword. There's a fisherman who comes over to help him, but doesn't give any words of advice or wisdom. He just kind of says like, keep going at it. And Kevin says, okay, yeah, great. And that's it. There's no teachable moment. There's no information that this fisherman gives him. It's just kind of, he's there and he tells him to go for it. To be honest, this season was really, really hard to watch. It dragged at the beginning, but as they say in Power Rangers,
Never give up.
Until
Antonio came along. When Antonio entered the show, it turned me around completely. Steven Skyler is the most experienced actor out of anybody in Samurai besides Kimberly Crossman, who comes later. He was a warbler in the show Glee prior to this, and he was in a handful of other projects which his cast members were not as experienced in. He is a fantastic singer. There's actually a music video online called The Secret that he did, also starring Kimberly Crossman, who makes an appearance in it. And honestly, Steven does an amazing job because the counterpart in Sentai was very over the top, big movements, kind of crazy, and he had to find a way to do that along with being a convincing actor at the same time, and I think he achieved both of those really well for what he was given. Antonio is the true hope of this season. He is the common man. He made his own destiny and he made his own powers. He wasn't ushered in because he was a part of a family. It's really the way that Rey in Star Wars was set up before the last movie, where they just decide to throw the whole she's a nobody out the window and now she's related to someone super important. It really shows that anybody can be a Power Ranger, anybody can do good, and that's what's really awesome about Antonio. Jayden and Antonio were childhood friends, and Jayden gave Antonio the Octopus Zord when he left. Antonio figured out how to communicate with the Octopus Zord through texting, and he found a way to connect to the morphing grid, making his own samurai powers. And Antonio's ability to conquer technology helped the Rangers out immensely. He went on to help fix the Claw Zord, the Lantern Zord, the Black Box, which helped them get the Super Samurai mode, and the Shark Disc. He also brings a very strong ability for strategy. The rest of the team isn't super creative when it comes to battling. They typically just use brute force, as that's all they were really trained to do. But when Emily's soul is stolen by a monster going to another dimension, Antonio is the smart one who figures out how to to get the monster to come back out. And he saves the whole Ranger team on his own, and without Antonio, there would be no Samurai Rangers. Xandrid would have won. And it happens several times in the show. When Master Xandrid is immune to Lauren's sealing power, they have the upper hand thanks to Antonio. The generations of Samurai Rangers have slowly lost their arsenal due to things being broken, things not working correctly, and Antonio is the one who comes in and fixes everything. Now, Antonio does have a moment where he isn't golden, and he deals with trauma, almost being eaten by a cat when he gets transformed, and he starts freezing up during battle. Trauma and mental health is actually a very unspoken, large subject about this season. The most obvious member of the team with trauma would be Emily, because she isn't really even supposed to be a ranger. She took over the powers from her sister, who is really sick. She's always trying to do the right thing, but she does struggle a little bit.
You really should. Mike! Come on, it'll make you feel better!
Her sister most likely would have been the tougher one, the stronger one, maybe a better ranger all around, which would weigh on Emily. But she shows a level of mental strength above everybody else. In episode 6, when a monster literally uses words to hurt people, nothing works on her.
Here's a word that'll send you flying. Airhead.
Yeah!
You're a clumsy fool. Impossible.
Why can't he hurt her?
And when a Nylok causes the whole team to be under an eating spell, Kevin had told Emily to be tougher, and she takes on the Nylok and does it all by herself. Emily is a lot more accepting than the rest of the team. Antonio even points out the fact that Emily was so accepting of him at the beginning. And it really makes sense because Emily can relate to Antonio in a lot of ways. The fact that neither of them were really supposed to be there. Without Emily's acceptance, the Rangers would have never been able to win, and that butterfly effect of really accepting people and being such a great person caused a lot of change in the team, especially for someone like Mike. Now, I've seen critics say that Mike is a sexist. I'm not really sure where that comes from. He loves video games, he's young, he is a little arrogant, but at no point in the show is he sexist. I mean, it just doesn't, I don't know where that's from. I mean, I just watched the whole season and I don't see any evidence of that, so I don't know. Honestly, I disliked Mike at the beginning too. Mike is from a clan that trains their people since birth to be a ranger. His lack of dedication is honestly pretty outrageous, and oftentimes he even makes fun of his own team for being dedicated. When Master G and Jayden give the possession of 2 of the Zords to Kevin and Mia, Mike is really ticked off. Even though he proved time and time again to not deserve it, suddenly he started taking his sealing power seriously, and Mia gives Mike the Zord, which is very in Mia's nature to do that, by the way. But you can't write Mike off. I mean, there are plenty of characters in the Power Ranger history who had a really amazing transformation. Jack Landers in SPD is one of those classic fan favorites that had a giant transformation by the time he got to the end. Mike's redemption as a character was really quite a process, and it started with his caring and love towards Emily. When her soul is taken, Mike reacts very, very passionately.
Come on, you coward. You can't do this to Emily.
Decker reveals that they can enter the Sanzu River, but at a very big cost. They would have to trade their existence to be a Nylok. Mike is the first to volunteer, and he really doesn't even hesitate to do it. He's willing to put himself out there to save somebody. But luckily, our man Antonio knows a better way. By the end of the season, Mike and Emily become a couple. Mike becomes a better ranger and a better person, and Emily continues to be a big part of his life even past Power Rangers Samurai. And their connection really does make sense because they're really the 2 youngest members of the team. Big contrast between them and, say, a character like Mia. Mia's very first shot in the whole entire show was her working at a daycare. Her motherly attributes show through a lot. The way she talks to her brother Terry, Mia's care towards her teammates, cooking, even though she's bad at it, she still wants to provide for her family. She's a romantic, a very talented singer, and I'll say there really isn't a wow moment for Mia and her fighting abilities, but she seems to know her way around a sword pretty well. When she confronts Jayden about letting Antonio into the Power Rangers, she bests him several times.
That's too much pressure, huh? Huh! I hit the nail on the head, didn't I?
There is an overlooked detail about her with her last name, Watanabe. Same as Cam in Ninja Storm. There's a little theory video that I hope you'll check out after this. I never do this. Why am I doing that? Moving on. While we're on the subject of the Shiba clan leader, let's start with the true 18th generation leader of the Samurai Rangers. Nope, it's not Jayden. Now, there's critics who say that her being a part of the show makes no sense at all, but it actually makes perfect sense. I mean, the sealing power is something that Red Ranger in 18 generations has ever truly mastered. So to set someone aside who can just work on that primarily and not be bothered with anything else is a really, really smart idea. And using another Red Ranger as a decoy, I don't know why people are saying it's pointless or it's dumb. It makes sense. I mean, I don't know if that's how I would do it or that's how you would do it, but it makes sense why someone would. Now, I'm not going to go too far in depth about Lauren because I did a full video just about Lauren, so check that out later. I saw a critic who said he stopped watching once Lauren came on, which is really sad because she's an amazing character. Kimberly Crossman is a great actress.
Rip his face off, shove it down his throat!
Really dumb that that's the point where I don't want to watch this anymore because there's a girl Red Ranger. The only thing that really doesn't make sense is Jayden leaving her when she finally joins the Power Rangers. Now, when you think about it, Antonio can create his own powers, and he could have just made Jayden his own set of powers. He could still basically be the leader, but Lauren could work on the ceiling power. It just doesn't make a lot of sense why you would just say, I'm not going to help you save the world. I'm going to go off and do my own thing. But in fact, let's talk a little more about Jayden. Despite Alex Hartman being nominated as the best TV actor in 2012 in the Teen Choice Awards, a lot of critics say he was a horrible Red Ranger. But what makes a great Red Ranger? Let's think. Proficient in fighting ability? You can't say he isn't a good fighter. He trains harder than anybody else. Master G even states that when he was a child, he trained so hard that he would make himself sick.
You're pushing yourself too hard, and that's not letting you be at your best. You also need to master balance in your life.
He never gave up, and he proved his dedication many times. In episode 7, the Rangers are all poisoned, and he's the only one who gets up out of bed, even being poisoned. He still goes and fights the Nylock. Some critics say that he makes really bad decisions. Now, this is something that I think is really important. This season has an underlying tone of mental health and trauma. Jayden has to lie to his team, and these are the only friends he's ever had. When his friends are putting themselves in danger to protect him, he leaves, going from a team of 5 to just himself to fight the Nylock, leaving 2 Zords in the possessions of other Rangers, losing part of his arsenal. How does he think he can defeat Master Xandra doing that? Then when he sees his team come back and follow him and still protect him, he's happy that his friends came to help.
That's my team.
I've also seen critics say that he's a gaslighter or he's very selfish, leaving his team, but I really think the issue goes a lot deeper than that. I've personally dealt with depression and definitely have done these sort of things before, where I'm putting my friends in situations that they have to prove themselves to be my friend, or making them go the extra mile to show me that they care, or I don't communicate with them that I'm upset or hurt and just sit there and stew that they're not doing anything to make me feel better when they don't know that I'm upset. Ultimately, that always ended very poorly. It never really worked out in my favor to do that type of thing. I believe that Jayden suffers from really bad chronic depression. It would definitely explain a lot of his decisions. Growing up alone, away from his sister, he doesn't trust anyone besides Master G, and Master G doesn't seem to really help him with his anxiety very much. Now, critics say that Master G makes a lot of dumb decisions, especially when it comes to Jayden, and I actually have a really strong theory about why I think he does those things in my video, so you'll have to check that out if you want to hear more. Jayden's ongoing battle with Decker only heightens his feeling of being alone. Decker calls Jayden weak, and that really gets to Jayden very deeply. You can see that it's eating him up inside, to a point where he gets so upset and frustrated that in training he's going way too hard, almost harming his own teammates.
Dude, it's only practice.
Sorry. Practice is over.
Come on. Let's go inside.
Speaking of Decker, for me, he's the most interesting villain of the whole season. I mean, just the fact that he does weird things like he protects Jayden so they can fight later is very interesting to me, and it would have been cool to see if the Rangers could have used that to their advantage at some point, like purposely put Jayden in harm's way of a monster, knowing that Decker's going to come take out that monster for them. And he's driven by this desire to use his sword, even taking out Serrator right after he returns the sword to him. And I really like the storyline of Dayu and Decker becoming guns for hire. I wish they would have maybe done more of that because it really was a cool idea. Now, I see a lot of critics hate Decker. I think that might be more of an issue with the actor and his past and everything that's happened, but I think the character in itself is actually pretty good good. There's some people say they don't like the acting. Honestly, the acting was good for what the character was, exactly what they wanted. And I don't think there's anything wrong with this character personally. As far as the rest of the monsters, I think Dayu at least had an interesting backstory with her whole love connection to Decker. Although, I mean, mostly she just kind of sat around and played music and that was it. Serrator was kind of a cool Darkonda character, but the real brains of the villains was Octoroon. And in fact, I think he's more of the main villain than Master Xandred, because Master Xandred just kind of sits around and is always just trying to rest. Octoroon is really the one making plans, doing things, even though he has kind of a silly catchphrase, which I'm not super fan of, but I mean, it's okay. It does what it's supposed to. There are a few interesting things from the villains that I like to note. The Nylok, one says that the old Rangers couldn't stop this attack, which was interesting to hear. Another monster states, he says, in 1492, I took out Pink and Blue. Now, one thing I thought that was interesting is that they didn't do something like in the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers where a monster would come up and Zordon would give them a rundown of who this monster is, what he can do. That former teams that have obviously faced these Nylok before didn't keep records of what they had to do to defeat different monsters. It would have been interesting if that was something they had access to, an old book or an old scroll that had all these monsters listed and how to defeat them. Now you might be thinking, whoa, Casey, you never mentioned Kevin. Why didn't you mention Kevin? I wanted to save Kevin for last because in all my research, Kevin is hands down the most hated character I've found from everybody. People say he's a brown noser or he's a rule follower. Now, I'll say at times it seems like he has a very little consideration for his teammates' emotions.
I hadn't been messing around.
Finally figured that out, huh?
Enough. I just wanted to see what a true samurai does. You don't get it. This isn't a spy movie. It's the real deal. You're just messing around. I'm not messing around. I'm serious and I'm trying to learn, dude.
Because Kevin expects everyone to be very dedicated. And you know what? There's actually a really, really good reason for that. Let's break it down and think about the team. You got Mike, Emily, Mia, and Antonio, who all have lives that they can go back to. They're just there waiting for them. Jayden and Lauren have been kind of stuck in this position for a long time, but they have a whole world that they can go out and explore once they're done with this. Kevin may not be able to return to his old life. Kevin's dream was to make the Olympics as a swimmer, which, side note, they should have said the Pan Global Games. Come on, guys, know your universe. Kimberly went off to train for the Pan Global Games, not the Olympics. Power Ranger World Universe, they're called the Pan Global Games. Come on. But think about how much work it really takes to even be close to making the Olympics. And now that he became a Power Ranger, fulfilling his family's duty, he may have lost that opportunity. All that work is gone. Every waking moment that they're fighting the Nyloks, staying at the Shiba house training, Kevin is knowing that his life is slipping farther and farther away, that he may never get it back. And that's why when Mike's fooling around, it really kills Kevin. Kevin is dedicated and he would never ever let a friend down. He lives by that mantra very, very seriously. But giving up that life, giving up that dream wasn't just bad for him, it was bad for his team. Before the Power Rangers, he had a very tight clan that he followed his life with, and that was his swimming team. Now in season 2, episode 8, Kevin's Choice, he got spotted by another swimmer at the aquatics center, and he overhears his old teammates saying that he failed the team. When he rescues his teammate from drowning, he's been struggling emotionally. He never got to resolve things with his old team. Not only did he have a dream, but his whole team had a dream, and him quitting hindered that, and he hurt them, and it makes him feel like a hypocrite for being someone who's so dedicated and so serious about doing the right thing. To do the right thing, he had to hurt these people, and they may never make the Olympics because of him. So all you people, hate on Kevin all you want, but just know that he is the person that has lost more than anybody else, and he sacrificed more in his life than anybody else. Oh, and by the way, he never complained about it. Now, it's always easy to judge a show or anything way after the fact, not knowing what was happening at the time. At this point, I thought Power Rangers was over. I mean, they had the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers like Redux, and it was not well received. I thought that was the end. It was done. One major thing is that Saban knows marketing, even though it was aimed at a much younger audience. By the way, my son, who is 3 years old, loves Bulk and Spike. Those scenes make him laugh so hard. I know that a lot of people hate on Bulk and Spike in this season, but it's aimed at a young audience. That's what they're there for, and they provide comic relief, man. If you're a little kid, boy, do they make you laugh, I'll say. Power Rangers was back, baby. The cast was at the Nickelodeon Teen Choice Awards in 2012, which is the first time that had ever happened, and it's only happened a few times since. They were doing PSAs again. They had Power Rangers Mega Blocks. Halloween costumes were in stores again. They had McDonald's toys in 2011 and 2012, which is the first time it's happened since 2005. The cast definitely started to feel more like celebrities again, especially with all their online content, doing interviews with them, doing all sorts of stuff that got kids more engaged with these characters, which is a lot like Power Rangers used to do with their VHSs back with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They had little interviews with each character. Honestly, all of this, all the marketing, everything that Saban did really helped launch Power Rangers to last another 10 years till we got Once and Always. Was Power Rangers Samurai my absolute favorite season? No. Was it revolting and terrible? No.
It wasn't.
It was a fun season and great for the younger audience. Sure, some inconsistencies here and there with the plot, but after watching this season, it really spiked a theory that I really want you to check out. I'm very proud of it. I think it's really makes a lot of sense about the Shiba clan and maybe all the things they went on the hush hush. Check that out.